Okay, your friendly neighborhood BS on Blast, here to give you a recap of what's been happening in Sudan over the last 12 to 14 hours. Time is a social construct. I don't know. I'm doing this because I've been sharing all the information, but I'm sure that people don't want to read. They want to hear it. And so I'm here to deliver that message to you. So let us begin. In the early morning hours of today, Monday, October 25th, Sudan Standard Time, military forces abducted, yes, you heard that correctly, abducted Prime Minister Hamdok, his wife, and several civilian members of government. There are reports that some of those members of government, ministers, notably the Minister of Information and Culture, the Minister of Industry, those are among the people who were arrested. Some of them were mistreated and reportedly physically beaten. I don't know if you can be emotionally beaten, whatever. Moving on, you get what I mean. The military blocked bridges and roads across the capital, Khartoum. They shut down internet service, particularly mobile data service. I think people had access to DSL, like landline internet things, but by and large, mobile data was completely shut down and continues to be until now. Telephone services were also disrupted. You couldn't call locally, you couldn't call internationally. Although there are reports that now telephone services are coming back on. General Abdel Fattah Burhan, who you might previously know as the chairman of the Sovereign Council of the Transitional Government, he's also a military general, comes on TV and says, "Hey guys, it's not working out, and it's not me, it's you. And by you, I mean the civilians. So here's what's going to happen. We're going to take over." Why are we going to take over? To correct the path to democracy. Y'all are not doing it right, so we're going to come here and we're going to do it for the youth. I'm not kidding. That's an actual quote. We're doing this for the youth, right? We want to make the youth's dreams come true by taking over the government and running things our way. How are they running things their way, you might ask? Well, he decides that we are committed still to the constitutional agreement of 2019, but with a little changes. So he ends up suspending several articles, basically the ones that outline power sharing with the civilians, so they don't got a power share no more. He also suspends/dissolves the cabinet of ministers, so there's no more government. He suspends/dissolves the Committee Against Corruption, which has been tasked with taking stock of all of the national assets that have been stolen, all of the assets that have been gained by the previous regime through corruption, and reclaiming those and repurposing those for the rebuilding of the country. He said, "We don't need that committee anymore. Get it out of here." Speaking of committees that he dissolved, he also dissolved the committee that is investigating the June 3rd massacre of 2019, in which the military violently dispersed the Khartoum sit-in and ended up killing hundreds and injuring many more, and so many missing. All of this to correct the path to democracy. What is Sudanese people's response? Even before this dude comes on TV to say his little bullshit, people are out in the streets. Yes, people were out in the streets since about 5 a.m. Khartoum Standard Time, protesting. We don't want him. We don't want you. Nobody asked for you. Who asked for you? Nobody. And listen, the streets of Khartoum, and shortly thereafter, the streets of Medani, the streets of Al-Lubayd, the streets of Kosti, the streets of Bor Sudan, the streets of Al-Jinena, the streets of Niala, the streets of Al-Fashir in Darfur, all of these cities coming out in protest to say, we don't want you and we're not falling for the okie doke. Here we go. Let's go back to Khartoum. Protesters in Khartoum make their way. At first, the bridges are blocked, so they can't make their way from places like Durman and Bahri, which are cities across the Nile from Khartoum. linked by bridges. But eventually they make their way through. Many protesters, hundreds of protesters, some report thousands of protesters, make their way to the military HQ in Khartoum, which previously was the site of the Khartoum sit-in. They are, of course, attacked by military forces. There are reports of live ammunition being fired at protesters. As of now, there is an estimated 4 who have died, who have lost their lives, and around 50 or more injured. Prime Minister's office, the Sudanese Professionals Association, which is the previous grassroots leader of the 2019 revolution, and the Forces of Freedom and Change, who were part of the government and part of the leading body of resistance during the 2019 revolution. All of these entities put out statements that urge the people to take the streets in protest and to practice all forms of non-violent resistance. Several organizations, including Sudanese doctors working in military hospitals, the University of Khartoum University of Khartoum Professors Union, and others, have all announced mass strikes and urged people to participate in a nationwide civil disobedience, which is now, it seems like, underway. The mass consensus is what? What do I want you to understand from all of this chaos that is happening? The Sudanese people do not want a military regime. We fought for a year. Scratch that. We fought for 40 plus years to get rid of the various military regimes that have plagued and pillaged our country. And we finally succeeded in 2019. Not so Burhan, bootleg Bashir, right, who was under al-Bashir, who carried out the Bashir regime's policies of death and destruction and tribalism and bigotry and oppression, and his friend slash supervillain who's really behind the scenes and knows how to play the game, and Kefeitي. That's what I'm talking about. We don't want none of them. Don't allow any news sources to convince you that the Sudanese people are confused or conflicted or divided about who they want ruling them. Madaniya. We want a civilian government. We don't want no more military regimes. We don't want no more military rule. We want a civilian government because we have a country to rebuild.